The dust-laden wind tore through Willow Wilson's hair as she watched her father, Edgar Wilson, exchange hushed words with a stranger across their drought-stricken farm. Their animated gestures made her stomach twist, especially when her father pointed directly at her. At 18, Willow had grown accustomed to her father's desperate schemes to save their failing ranch, but the predatory look in the stranger's eyes as he assessed her made her blood run cold. Arizona Territory, 1883. 3 years of drought had driven most families from this unforgiving land. The Wilson homestead stood as a testament to stubbornness rather than wisdom, their cattle thin, their crops withered, and their hope all but gone. "Willow," her father called, his voice slurring slightly from the whiskey he'd started drinking before noon. "Come over here, girl, mister. Burroughs has a proposition for us." She approached cautiously, wiping her dirt-stained hands on her faded blue dress. Mr. Burroughs wasn't the first man her father had introduced as a potential savior. At 40-something with yellowed teeth and the stench of stale tobacco clinging to his expensive suit, he represented everything Willow had grown to fear. "My goodness," Burroughs drawled, tipping his hat. "Edgar, you didn't mention your daughter was such a vision." Her father's chest puffed with pride, as if her appearance was somehow his accomplishment. "Willow's a good girl, hard worker, worth every penny." The words struck her like physical blows, worth every penny. She struggled to maintain her composure as the terrible realization dawned on her. Her father wasn't seeking a loan or selling land. He was negotiating her. "Father," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "what exactly are you discussing with Mr. Burroughs?" Edgar Wilson couldn't meet her eyes. "Mr. Burroughs owns the Silver Creek Mining Company. He needs a housekeeper for his establishment in town. Good pay, regular meals. And companionship," Burroughs added with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "For a select clientele," Willow took a step back, "you're selling me to a brothel keeper." "Now, Willow," her father sputtered, "it's respectable work. Many girls do it." "I've already agreed to $500, Burroughs interjected. "Generous considering the current economic climate, $500. The sum that would determine her worth, her future, her dignity." Willow felt her world crumbling beneath her feet. "I'm not going," she said firmly, her father's face darkened. "You'll do as you're told. This farm is dying. We're dying. This money saves us both." "No," she said, backing away. "I won't," Burroughs sighed dramatically. "Edgar, control your daughter. We had an agreement." The sound of approaching hoofbeats interrupted the confrontation. All three turned toward the dirt road, where a lone rider approached through the haze of dust. Willow recognized the silhouette immediately, and her heart quickened despite the dire circumstances. Adam Morgan dismounted with the easy grace of a man who'd spent his life on horseback. At 23, he'd earned a reputation as one of the territory's most skilled ranchers. His family's spread bordered the Wilson property, and he'd spent the past year helping Willow with repairs her father was too drunk to manage. "Afternoon," Adam said, tipping his hat. His eyes, sharp as a hawk's, took in the scene before him. "Everything all right here, Willow?" Before she could answer, her father stepped forward. "This is private business, Morgan. Best you ride on." Adam's gaze shifted to Burroughs, recognition dawning on his sun-weathered face. "Silver Creek Burroughs, thought you'd been run out of 3 counties already," Burroughs sneered. "My reputation precedes me." "Like gangrene precedes amputation," Adam replied evenly. "What business do you have with the Wilsons?" Edgar Wilson puffed up his chest. "Not that it's any of your concern, but Mr. Burroughs is offering good money for Willow's services in town." The silence that followed was so complete Willow could hear the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Adam's expression darkened dangerously as he looked from Edgar to Burroughs and finally to her, noting the tears threatening to spill from her eyes. "You're selling your daughter." The quiet disgust in his voice made Edgar Wilson shrink slightly. "It's an employment opportunity," Burroughs cut in smoothly. "One that benefits everyone involved." Adam stepped closer to Willow, his shoulder now protectively in front of her. "She already belongs to me." The declaration hung in the air. Willow stared at Adam's back in shock, not daring to breathe. "What nonsense is this?" Edgar sputtered. Adam turned to face Willow, his expression softening as he looked at her. "I've been meaning to speak with you, Mr. Wilson." Willow and I have been courting for some time now. I came today to ask for her hand. It wasn't true, of course. They had never spoken of courtship, though Willow had dreamed of it in the private sanctuary of her heart. Adam had been kind to her, bringing supplies when they were desperate, helping with the well when it ran dry, teaching her to shoot when coyotes threatened their remaining chickens. But courtship, marriage, these were fantasies she'd never dared voice. Is this true? Her father demanded, looking at Willow with suspicious eyes. She opened her mouth, uncertain what would emerge when Adam's hand found hers, warm and steady. "Tell him, Willow," Adam said softly. "Tell your father who you belong with." The choice crystallized before her, Burroughs and a life of degradation, or Adam and whatever lie he was spinning to save her. Her fingers tightened around his. "It's true," she said, finding strength in the falsehood. "Adam and I have been courting. I was going to tell you, father, but you've been." Preoccupied, Burroughs spat on the ground. "This is ridiculous. We had a deal, Edgar." "I made no such arrangement," Adam said calmly, "and I don't believe a father can sell what isn't his to give." His eyes never left Burroughs. "Willow made her choice long ago. She belongs with me now." Edgar Wilson looked torn between the money in Burroughs' pocket and the formidable presence of Adam Morgan, whose family held considerable influence in the territory. "I was promised $500, he whined. Adam reached into his pocket, withdrew a folded bill and pressed it into Edgar's hand. "Here's 20. Consider it a down payment on a proper bride price. I'll return tomorrow to discuss terms with a clear-headed man, not one who'd sell his own blood." Edgar stared at the money, conflict plain on his face. "And Burroughs," Adam continued, "if I ever hear of you approaching the Wilson property again, they'll find pieces of you scattered from here to Mexico. Are we clear?" The brothel keeper measured the steel in Adam's eyes and evidently found the threat credible. "Plenty of girls in this territory," he muttered, backing toward his horse. "No need for complications." As Burroughs mounted up and rode away, Willow felt the tension drain from her body, leaving her light-headed with relief. Adam still held her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her skin. "Father," she said quietly, "I'd like to speak with Adam alone." Edgar pocketed the $20 with a scowl. "Fine, but this conversation isn't over, girl." He stumbled toward the house, muttering about ungrateful children. When they were finally alone, Willow withdrew her hand from Adam's grasp. "Why did you do that?" Adam's eyes were the color of the sky after a storm, clear and impossibly blue. "You know why?" "No," she insisted. "I don't. We're not courting. We've never even—" She stopped, unable to articulate the tumult of feelings his declaration had unleashed. "Willow." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer. "I've been finding excuses to ride to this farm every week for a year. I fixed your fence when it didn't need fixing. I brought you books when I know you have plenty. I taught you to shoot when you're already a better shot than most men I know." She stared at him, comprehension slowly dawning. "You've been courting me all this time," a smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "I thought I was being obvious, but you never said anything. I was waiting for the right moment." He glanced toward the house, his expression darkening. "This wasn't how I planned to ask you, but when I saw what was happening." He took a deep breath. "I meant what I said, Willow. Not the belonging part. You don't belong to anyone but yourself, but I do want to marry you if you'll have me." The world seemed to tilt beneath her feet. Adam Morgan, with his vast ranch and respected name, wanted her not out of pity or necessity, but desire. "This is madness," she whispered. "We barely know each other." He smiled again, more fully this time. "I know you read Shakespeare by lamplight. I know you can't abide coffee without honey. I know you sing to the chickens when you think no one's listening. I know you're the strongest woman I've ever met." Each observation struck her heart like an arrow, precise and true. How closely he had been watching her, noticing things even her father had never seen. "What about my father?" "The farm," Adam's expression grew serious. "Your father can keep his land if he sobers up and works it proper, or he can sell it and move to town. But either way, you're free to choose your own path, Willow. Freedom." The word tasted foreign on her tongue, sweet and terrifying. "And if my path leads to you," his eyes darkened with emotion, "then I'll be the happiest man in the Arizona territory." She should have hesitated, should have demanded time to consider, but the truth hummed in her blood like a certainty. "Yes," she said simply. Yes. His voice held a note of disbelief. Yes, Adam Morgan, I'll marry you. He closed the distance between them, his hand gently cradling her face. May I? He whispered, his eyes seeking permission. She nodded, and his lips met hers in a kiss as gentle as rain on parched earth. When they finally parted, his forehead rested against hers, their breath mingling in the dusty air. I should have done that a year ago, he murmured. Better late than never, she replied, smiling despite the tears that threatened to fall. What happens now? Adam glanced toward the house where her father had disappeared. Now I take you home to meet my family. Tomorrow, I'll return to discuss matters properly with your father when he's sober. And if he refuses, Adam's expression was resolute. You're 18, Willow. With or without his blessing, I intend to make you my wife before the month is out. As they mounted Adam's horse together, her arms wrapped securely around his waist, Willow cast one last glance at the failing farm that had been her prison for so long. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to hope for something more than mere survival. Ready? Adam asked, his voice warm against the cooling evening air. She tightened her hold on him, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her palms. Ready. With a click of his tongue, Adam urged his horse forward, carrying them away from the past and toward whatever future they would build together. The Morgan Ranch sprawled across the valley like a kingdom unto itself, green and thriving despite the drought that had ravaged surrounding properties. As they crested the final hill, Willow gasped at the sight of the two-story ranch house, its whitewashed walls gleaming in the setting sun. It's beautiful, she breathed against Adam's back. He guided his horse down the winding path toward the main house. It's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather built it for my grandmother when they first settled here. Unlike the Wilson homestead with its failing crops and dying cattle, the Morgan Ranch radiated prosperity. Healthy horses grazed in fenced pastures, workers moved purposefully between outbuildings, and smoke curled invitingly from the chimney of the main house. Adam, a woman's voice called from the porch as they approached. You're late for supper. Hannah Morgan stepped into view, wiping her hands on her apron. Adam's mother was a handsome woman in her 50s, her dark hair streaked with silver, her bearing regal despite her practical clothing. Her welcoming smile faltered slightly when she noticed Willow. We have company. She asked as Adam helped Willow dismount. Mother, Adam said, his hand finding the small of Willow's back. This is Willow Wilson. Willow, my mother, Hannah Morgan. Understanding dawned on Hannah's face. Wilson, Edgar Wilson's daughter. Willow nodded, suddenly conscious of her threadbare dress and dust-streaked face. Yes, madam, it's a pleasure to meet you. Hannah studied her for a long moment before a genuine smile warmed her features. The pleasure is mine, dear. Adam has spoken of you often, though he never mentioned bringing you to dinner. The last part was directed at her son with a pointed look. Adam cleared his throat. It was a spontaneous decision, his father home, in his study with the ledgers. Hannah gestured toward the house. Willow, you must be hungry. Come inside while Adam sees to his horse. As Adam led his mount toward the stables, Willow followed Hannah into a home unlike any she'd ever entered. The Wilson farmhouse was a crude structure of weathered wood and patched holes. The Morgan Ranch house was a testament to permanence and care. Polished wooden floors gleamed beneath her dusty boots, and actual paintings, not just newspaper clippings, adorned the walls. The dining room is this way, Hannah said, guiding her through the house. Though perhaps you'd like to freshen up first, Willow flushed with embarrassment. Yes, please, that would be kind. Hannah led her to a small washroom, providing a clean towel and soap that smelled of lavender. Take your time, dear. I'll let George know we have a guest. Left alone, Willow stared at her reflection in the small mirror above the basin. Her blonde hair hung in tangled waves around a face tanned by the Arizona sun. Dark circles shadowed eyes too old for her 18 years. She looked exactly like what she was, a struggling farmer's daughter, not the kind of woman who married into a family like the Morgans. What am I doing here? She whispered to her reflection. The events of the day seemed like a fever dream. Had Adam Morgan really proposed marriage? Had she accepted? The memory of his kiss lingered on her lips, too real to be imagination. After washing her face and hands and attempting to tame her hair into something presentable, Willow took a deep breath and rejoined her hosts. The dining room was lit with actual oil lamps, not the tallow candles she was accustomed to, and the table was set with china plates rather than the chipped enamel dishes she'd eaten from all her life. George Morgan rose from his seat at the head of the table when she entered. He was a tall man with the same intense blue eyes as his son, though his hair had gone mostly gray. "Miss Wilson," he greeted her with a slight bow. "Adam tells me you've done us the honor of agreeing to join our family." Willow nearly stumbled in surprise. Adam had already told them. "Yes, sir," she managed, uncertain of the proper protocol, though it's all happened rather suddenly. George's expression revealed nothing as he held a chair for her. "Indeed, rather unconventional, even for my son." Hannah placed a steaming plate before Willow. "George, don't intimidate the poor girl. She's had quite a day from what Adam tells us." Willow glanced at Adam, who had taken the seat beside her. How much had he revealed about the circumstances of their engagement? "I've explained everything," he said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "My parents understand the situation." George Morgan cleared his throat. "Miss Wilson, let me be plain. I've known your father for many years. He was once a good man before your mother's passing and the bottle took hold of him, what he attempted today." He paused, his jaw tightening. "Well, it was unconscionable." "Yes, sir," she agreed softly. "It was. However," he continued, "hasty marriages rarely end well. While I applaud my son's intentions, I must ask, do you truly wish to marry Adam, or are you simply escaping a desperate situation?" The question hung in the air, direct and unavoidable. Willow felt 3 pairs of eyes watching her, waiting for her answer. "Mr. Morgan," she began, choosing her words carefully, "I won't pretend that my circumstances didn't influence my decision. But Adam has been a constant presence in my life this past year, showing kindness when others showed contempt." She looked at Adam, finding courage in his steady gaze. "I admire him more than any man I've ever known. If he's willing to be patient with me, I believe my affection could grow into something worthy of the commitment he's offering." Her honesty seemed to surprise George, whose stern expression softened slightly. "Well said, Miss Wilson." "Eloquent as always," Adam added with a smile that made her heart flutter. Hannah reached across the table to pat Willow's hand. "Love grows from respect and honesty, dear. It sounds like you have a fine foundation already." The rest of the meal passed in surprisingly comfortable conversation. The Morgans asked about her education, limited but supplemented by books borrowed from the town library. Her skills, cooking, sewing, animal husbandry, and a talent for figures that had kept the Wilson farm books balanced despite her father's mismanagement. And her interests, literature, particularly Shakespeare and Austen, whose works she discovered in a crate of abandoned books. By the time dessert was served, actual apple pie, a luxury Willow hadn't tasted in years, she had begun to relax. The Morgans were intimidating in their prosperity but genuine in their welcome. As Hannah cleared the plates, George addressed his son. "What's your plan, Adam?" "Edgar Wilson won't take this lying down, especially if he believes there's money to be had." Adam nodded grimly. "I know. I plan to return tomorrow with a formal offer, $500 for Willow's hand." "That's exactly what Burroughs offered," Willow protested. "You shouldn't have to buy me." Adam's hand found hers beneath the table. "I'm not buying you, Willow. I'm removing your father's financial incentive to cause problems. Once we're married, the money becomes irrelevant." "It's a sound strategy," George agreed. "Though I suspect Edgar will demand more once he realizes Adam is serious." "Then I'll pay it," Adam said firmly. "Whatever it takes." Hannah returned from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "It's getting late. Willow should stay the night in our guest room. Tomorrow, after you've spoken with Edgar, you can decide next steps." George nodded in agreement. The proprieties must be observed, especially given the unusual circumstances. Willow felt a rush of gratitude for their pragmatic acceptance. They could have turned her away or treated her with disdain given her family's reputation, but instead they offered shelter and respect. "Thank you," she said, addressing all 3 Morgans. "Your kindness means more than I can express." Later, as Hannah showed her to a guest room more luxurious than any space Willow had ever occupied, Adam caught her in the hallway for a private moment. "Are you comfortable?" he asked, his voice low. "This is all happening very quickly." She nodded, though comfortable hardly described the whirlwind of emotions she was experiencing. "Your parents are being very understanding. They recognize quality when they see it," he replied with a smile. "Rest well, Willow. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges." He leaned forward and pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, the gesture so tender it brought tears to her eyes. As he turned to leave, she caught his hand. "Adam," she whispered, "thank you for saving me today." His expression grew serious. "I didn't save you, Willow. I merely offered an alternative. You chose your own path." As she settled into the unfamiliar comfort of the Morgan guest room, Willow tried to reconcile the day's extraordinary events. That morning, she had been a farmer's daughter with few prospects beyond hard work and eventual spinsterhood. Tonight, she was engaged to Adam Morgan, sleeping under his family's roof, contemplating a future so different from anything she'd imagined that it seemed like a dream. She fell asleep wondering if morning would bring reality crashing back, or if this new path might truly be hers to walk. Morning arrived with golden light streaming through curtains finer than any Willow had ever owned. For a disorienting moment, she couldn't place where she was, then the events of the previous day came rushing back. Her father's betrayal. Adam's unexpected proposal. The Morgan family's cautious welcome. She rose and dressed in the same faded dress she'd worn the day before, wishing she had something more presentable. A soft knock at the door revealed Hannah, already dressed for the day, bearing a bundle of fabric. "Good morning, dear," she said warmly. "I thought you might appreciate a fresh dress. This was mine some years ago before I outgrew it." She held out a simple but well-made blue cotton dress. "It might be a bit large, but with the right pins, it should serve until we can get you properly outfitted." Willow accepted the dress with trembling hands. "This is too generous." Hannah waved away her protest. "Nonsense. You're to be my daughter now. Let me help you with the adjustments." With deft hands born of years of experience, Hannah pinned the dress to fit Willow's slender frame. As she worked, she spoke of practical matters, the running of the ranch, local gossip, her hopes for grandchildren when the time is right. "There," she said finally, stepping back to admire her handiwork. "You look lovely. Adam is a fortunate man." Willow examined her reflection in the small mirror. The blue dress, though simple, was of far better quality than anything she'd ever owned. It transformed her from a worn-down farmer's daughter to a young woman of promise. "Thank you," she whispered, overcome with emotion. Hannah patted her shoulder. "Come down for breakfast when you're ready. The men are already discussing strategy for approaching your father." In the dining room, Adam and George were deep in conversation over coffee and papers. Both rose when Willow entered, and Adam's expression of admiration as he took in her appearance gave her a confidence she'd never felt before. "Good morning," she said, taking the seat Adam held for her. "You look beautiful," he replied, his voice low and sincere. George cleared his throat. "We've been discussing terms for your father. I've drawn up a formal bride price agreement, standard for these parts, though rarely used these days except in the most traditional families." He slid a document across the table. Adam suggested $800, which should be more than generous considering the circumstances. Willow stared at the document, unable to fully process that her future was being negotiated with such businesslike efficiency. "It seems wrong to put a price on a person." "It's not about pricing you," Adam explained gently. "It's about respecting tradition while ensuring your father has no cause to create difficulties. Once we're married, what's mine is yours anyway." Hannah served breakfast eggs, bacon, and fresh bread that made Willow's mouth water. "When do you plan to visit Edgar?" she asked her son. "Mid-morning," Adam replied. "I want to give him time to sober up but catch him before he starts drinking again." George folded the document and handed it to Adam. "I've included provisions for the Wilson property as well. If Edgar wishes to sell, we'll offer fair market value. If not, we'll respect his ownership but ensure Willow's interests are protected." "My father may not be reasonable," Willow warned, "especially if he's been drinking." Adam's expression hardened. "Then I'll be persuasive." After breakfast, Adam saddled 2 horses, his own chestnut gelding and a gentle mare for Willow. "I thought you should be present," he explained. "This concerns your future more than anyone's." She nodded, grateful for his consideration. As they prepared to depart, Hannah pressed a package into Willow's hands. "Some food," she explained, "and a few necessities in case you need to gather your belongings today." The ride to the Wilson farm took nearly an hour, during which Adam outlined his approach. "I'll be respectful but firm," he promised. "If your father is belligerent, stay behind me. If he's reasonable, all the better." "And if he refuses outright?" Willow asked, the question that had been weighing on her mind. Adam's jaw set in a determined line. "Then we'll proceed without his blessing. The circuit judge visits town next week. We can be married then, with or without your father's consent." The Wilson farm came into view, looking even more pitiful in the harsh light of morning than it had the previous evening. The cattle pen stood empty. Her father must have sold the last of their herd for drinking money. The crops withered in fields that hadn't seen proper irrigation in months. Edgar Wilson sat on the porch, rifle across his knees, watching their approach with narrowed eyes. He'd been drinking already. Willow could tell from the slackness of his posture. "So you've come back," he called as they dismounted. "With my ungrateful daughter in tow." Adam stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Willow. "Mr. Wilson, I've come to discuss a formal arrangement regarding Willow's hand in marriage." Edgar spat over the porch railing. "Burroughs offered $500. What's your counter?" $800, Adam replied evenly. "Plus considerations regarding your property should you wish to sell in the future." Edgar's bloodshot eyes widened. $800. Plus my word that the Morgan family will ensure you never lack for necessities, so long as you comport yourself with dignity." Edgar struggled to his feet, the rifle dangling from one hand. "Let me see this offer." Adam produced the document his father had prepared. Edgar squinted at it, his lips moving as he tried to decipher the legal language through his alcohol-induced haze. "You're serious about marrying her?" he asked finally, glancing at his daughter with an expression Willow couldn't quite read. "Very serious," Adam confirmed. "We intend to wed next week when Judge Taylor is in town." Edgar lowered the rifle, seeming to deflate. $800 is a fortune." "Willow is worth every penny and more," Adam replied. "But the money isn't for her. It's to settle any claim you might make and to help you rebuild your life if you choose to." A complex emotion flickered across Edgar's weathered face, shame, perhaps, or regret. "I need to think on this." "Take the day," Adam offered. "We'll return tomorrow for your answer. In the meantime, Willow will be staying with my family." Edgar's gaze shifted to his daughter. "You want this girl to marry into the high and mighty Morgans." Willow met her father's eyes steadily. "I want a future father." "Adam is offering me one based on respect, not ownership." The subtle dig at his attempted sale wasn't lost on Edgar, who had the grace to look ashamed. "You always were too smart for your own good," he muttered. "Like your mother." The mention of her mother, rare from Edgar's lips, caught Willow by surprise. "She would have wanted better for me than being sold to a brothel keeper." Edgar flinched as if struck. "I was desperate. And drunk," she added, finding courage in Adam's solid presence beside her. "You've been desperate and drunk for years, father. I've done everything I could to keep this farm going, to keep you going, but I can't do it anymore." Her father stared at her as if seeing her clearly for the first time in years. "When did you grow up, Willow? When did you become this woman standing before me?" "While you weren't looking," she replied softly. A heavy silence fell between them, broken only by the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. "I'd like to gather some of my things," Willow said finally. "Books, clothes, mother's locket." Edgar nodded, stepping aside to let her pass. As she entered the house, she heard him address Adam. "If you hurt her, Morgan, I may be a drunk, but I can still put a bullet between your eyes." Adam's reply was measured. "If I hurt her, Mr. Wilson, I'll hand you the gun myself." Inside the shabby house, Willow moved quickly, gathering her few precious possessions. Her mother's silver locket containing a tiny portrait. The 3 books she'd managed to keep through years of hardship. A small wooden box containing her mother's wedding ring and a few trinkets. Clothing hardly worth taking, but all she had. It took less than 15 minutes to pack her entire life into a small cloth bundle, When she emerged, Adam and her father were still on the porch, an uneasy truce established between them. "That's all you're taking?" Edgar asked, eyeing her meager bundle. "It's all I have," she replied simply. Something like pain crossed her father's face. "Your mother would be ashamed of what I've become," he said quietly. "What I almost did to you." Willow approached him cautiously. "There's still time to change, father." To be the man she loved. Edgar glanced at the whiskey bottle peeking from beneath his chair. "Maybe," he said, though his tone suggested doubt. Adam helped Willow mount her horse, securing her bundle behind the saddle. "We'll return tomorrow, Mr. Wilson. I hope you'll consider my offer favorably." As they rode away, Willow resisted the urge to look back. The farm had been her prison for too long. Now she was riding toward something new, something hopeful. "Are you all right?" Adam asked when they were some distance away. "I think so," she replied, surprised to find it was true. "It feels strange, leaving everything I've known." "You're not leaving everything," he said. "Just the parts that were holding you back." They rode in companionable silence for a while, the rhythm of the horses' hooves a soothing counterpoint to Willow's tumultuous thoughts. "Adam," she said eventually, "what happens if my father refuses your offer?" He guided his horse closer to hers. "Then we proceed as planned. You're of age. Your father's blessing would be preferable, but it's not required. And your parents, would they accept a marriage without proper protocol?" Adam smiled. "My parents already accept you, Willow. The protocol is for the community's sake, not theirs." The certainty in his voice eased some of her anxiety. "You've thought of everything." "Not everything," he admitted. "But enough to know that whatever challenges arise, we'll face them together." The promise settled around her like a warm blanket, comforting in its simplicity. Whatever came next, she wouldn't face it alone. When they returned to the Morgan Ranch, Hannah was waiting on the porch, her expression anxious. "How did it go?" "As well as could be expected," Adam replied, helping Willow dismount. "Edgar's considering the offer. We'll know tomorrow." Hannah nodded, then gestured toward the house. "Willow, I've had a bath prepared for you, and there are some more clothes laid out. Nothing fancy, just some things I've adjusted to fit you better than that old dress." The thought of a proper bath, not just a quick wash in a basin of tepid water, nearly brought tears to Willow's eyes. "Thank you, Mrs. Morgan." "Hannah, please," Adam's mother corrected gently. "We're to be family soon." As Willow soaked in the luxury of hot water and lavender soap, she allowed herself to imagine a future as Adam Morgan's wife. Living in this house, contributing to the running of the ranch, perhaps someday raising children with his blue eyes and determined spirit. The vision was so enticing it frightened her hope, was a dangerous thing for someone who'd learned to expect disappointment. After her bath, she discovered Hannah had provided not just one dress but 3, along with undergarments, stockings, and even a pair of boots that fit her better than her worn-out ones. The generosity overwhelmed her. "I can't accept all this," she protested when she found Hannah in the kitchen. "Nonsense," Hannah replied briskly. "Consider it an early wedding gift. Besides, Adam mentioned you might accompany him to town tomorrow after speaking with your father. You'll want to look presentable when meeting the townsfolk as is intended." Town. Willow hadn't considered that aspect of her new position. As Adam Morgan's fiancée, she would be scrutinized by the entire community. The thought was terrifying. "Do people in town know about the engagement?" she asked. Hannah chuckled. "News travels fast in small communities, dear. I imagine it's already the primary topic of conversation at the general store and saloon." Willow's stomach knotted with anxiety. "They'll think it's strange, that Adam could do better." Hannah put down the dough she was kneading and turned to face Willow fully. "Listen to me, child. The only opinion that matters is Adam's, and he's made his choice clear. Yes, there will be gossip there always, is when someone like my son chooses a bride, but you hold your head high and show them the woman he saw beneath the circumstances." The fierce support in Hannah's voice gave Willow courage. "I'll try." "Good." Hannah returned to her dough. "Now, would you like to learn how to make proper dinner rolls? I suspect your cooking skills could use some refinement beyond survival fare." The rest of the day passed in a blur of domestic instruction. Hannah proved to be a patient teacher, guiding Willow through recipes and household management techniques she'd never had the opportunity to learn. By evening, Willow had gained not just practical knowledge, but a deeper appreciation for the woman who would be her mother-in-law. After dinner, Adam suggested a walk to the nearby creek. Under the watchful but discreet eye of a ranch hand who happened to be working nearby propriety still had to be maintained, they strolled along the water's edge as twilight painted the sky in shades of purple and gold. "You seem more at ease today," Adam observed. Willow nodded. "Your mother has been very kind. She's teaching me things I never had the chance to learn." "She likes you," he said, smiling. "She wasn't sure what to expect, but you've won her over. And your father, he's more reserved by nature, but he approves. He said you have grit, which from him is high praise indeed." They walked in silence for a moment, the gurgling of the creek a pleasant backdrop to their conversation. "Adam," Willow said finally, voicing the question that had been troubling her, "are you certain about this, about me? It's all happening so quickly." He stopped walking and turned to face her, taking both her hands in his. "I've been certain about you for months, Willow. The circumstances may have accelerated my timeline, but they didn't create my feelings." "But we hardly know each other," she protested weakly. "Don't we?" His thumbs traced circles on her palms. "I know you're stronger than anyone gives you credit for. I know you have a mind sharper than most educated men I've met. I know you've sacrificed your own happiness to care for a father who doesn't deserve your loyalty." Each observation pierced Willow's defenses, making her wonder just how closely Adam had been watching her all these months. "And what do you know about me?" he asked softly. She considered the question carefully. "I know you're kind when no one's looking. I know you respect honest work, no matter who does it. I know you see people for who they could be, not just who they are." A smile spread across his face. "See, we're not strangers, Willow. We've been learning each other all along." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished. Instead, she closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like coming home. His arms encircled her waist, drawing her closer, and for the first time in her life, Willow felt truly wanted, truly seen. When they finally broke apart, Adam rested his forehead against hers. "I could get used to that," he murmured. She laughed softly, her heart lighter than it had been in years. "So could I." The sound of a throat clearing reminded them they weren't entirely alone. The ranch hand had studiously turned his back, but was clearly signaling that they should maintain proper decorum. Adam grinned, unrepentant. "We should head back before the poor man has to report to my father that his son was behaving improperly with his fiancée." As they walked back to the house, hand in hand under the emerging stars, Willow allowed herself to believe that this new life might truly be hers. That tomorrow, her father might accept Adam's offer with grace, that the townspeople might eventually accept her, that she and Adam might build something beautiful together from the ashes of her past. For the first time in years, hope didn't feel like a dangerous indulgence but a real possibility. The next morning dawned clear and cool, a perfect autumn day in the Arizona territory. Willow dressed in one of the new outfits. Hannah had provided a cornflower blue dress with a matching ribbon for her hair. The woman staring back from the mirror looked nothing like the exhausted farmer's daughter who had arrived at the Morgan Ranch 2 days prior. Adam waited for her on the porch, dressed more formally than usual in a clean white shirt, vest, and his best trousers. His eyes lit up when he saw her. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Your mother's doing," Willow replied, though she couldn't help feeling a flutter of pleasure at his admiration. George Morgan emerged from the house, holding an envelope that Willow presumed contained the formal offer for her father. "Remember," he advised his son, "stand firm on the terms. If Edgar tries to negotiate up, remind him of the advantages beyond the monetary value." Adam nodded, taking the envelope. "I understand, Father." Hannah joined them, pressing a basket into Willow's hands. "Food for your father," she explained. Regardless of how the conversation goes, the man should eat something besides whiskey. The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched Willow deeply. Even after everything her father had done, the Morgans were extending kindness toward him. They mounted their horses Willow, now much more comfortable after Adam's impromptu riding lessons the previous afternoon, and set off toward the Wilson farm. The journey felt different this time, less tense, more hopeful. "After we speak with your father," Adam said as they rode. "I thought we might continue to town. There are people I'd like you to meet and supplies we'll need for the wedding." Willow's stomach tightened at the thought of facing the town as Adam Morgan's intended. "Do you think people will be unkind?" she asked hesitantly. Adam's expression grew serious. "Some might be. There are always those who resent others' happiness or judge what they don't understand. But most folks in town are decent people who will be happy for us once they see how things stand between us." His confidence bolstered her courage. "Then I'd like to go to town. I should face them sooner rather than later." They arrived at the Wilson farm to find Edgar seated on the porch, much as he had been the day before. The difference was striking, however. He was clean-shaven, wearing his one good shirt, and there was no whiskey bottle in sight. "You came back," he said, rising to greet them. "As promised," Adam replied, dismounting and helping Willow down from her horse. Edgar's eyes widened slightly at the transformation in his daughter's appearance. "You look like your mother," he said gruffly. Coming from her father, it was the highest compliment. "Thank you," Willow replied softly. She held out Hannah's basket. "Mrs. Morgan sent food." Edgar accepted the basket with a nod of acknowledgement. "Decent of her," he gestured toward the house. "Come inside. We should discuss this properly." The interior of the farmhouse had been tidied not thoroughly, but enough to show effort had been made. The empty whiskey bottles had been cleared away, and the table had been wiped clean. "Have you considered my offer, Mr. Wilson?" Adam asked, taking the seat Edgar indicated. "I have." Edgar settled across from them, his weathered hands flat on the table. $800 is more than fair. "But I have conditions beyond the money." Adam's posture remained relaxed but alert. "What conditions?" "First, you marry her proper in a church with a preacher, not just a judge's signature on a paper." Edgar's gaze shifted to his daughter. "Your mother would have wanted that." "Agreed," Adam said without hesitation. "We can arrange for Reverend Collins to officiate when Judge Taylor is in town to record the marriage legally." Edgar nodded, satisfied. "Second, you give me your word that she'll be treated as your equal, not just some rescued charity case." Willow stared at her father in shock. After years of neglect and his recent attempt to sell her, this sudden concern for her welfare seemed incongruous. "You have my word," Adam replied solemnly. "Willow will be my partner in all things, respected and valued for who she is." Edgar studied Adam's face for a long moment, as if searching for any sign of deception. Finally, he nodded again. "Last condition, I want visiting rights, not to interfere, just to see her sometimes. She's all I have left of her mother." The unexpected request brought tears to Willow's eyes. Despite everything, despite his many failings, her father did care for her in his own broken way. "You'll always be welcome in our home," Adam said, "provided you come sober and with respect." Edgar extended his hand across the table. "Then we have an agreement, Morgan." Adam shook the offered hand firmly. "We do, sir." The formality of the moment was almost overwhelming for Willow. In the space of minutes, her future had been decided, negotiated between the two men in her life with a businesslike efficiency that belied the emotional significance of the arrangement. "When will the wedding be?" Edgar asked, releasing Adam's hand. "Next Saturday," Adam replied. "Judge Taylor arrives Friday, and Reverend Collins has agreed to perform the ceremony at the church in town." Edgar turned to his daughter. "That gives you just over a week to prepare. Is that enough time?" "More than enough," Willow assured him, still processing his unexpected transformation from belligerent drunk to concerned father. Adam produced the envelope containing the formal agreement. "My father prepared this document outlining our arrangement. If you're satisfied with the terms, we can sign it now." Edgar opened the envelope and read through the document carefully, taking his time with the legal language. "This includes provisions for the farm," he noted. "Yes," Adam confirmed. "If you choose to sell in the future, the Morgan Ranch will offer fair market value. If you choose to maintain ownership, we'll provide assistance to make it viable again." A range of emotions crossed Edgar's face: pride, shame, resignation, and finally a grim determination. "I've been a poor steward of this land," he admitted, "and a worse father." He looked directly at Willow. I know an apology isn't enough to make up for what I almost did, but I am sorry, girl, the drink. It makes a man see dark paths as viable options. I know, Father, Willow said quietly. Edgar signed the document with a surprisingly steady hand, then pushed it toward Adam. It's done then. You have my blessing for whatever that's worth. Adam added his signature, then handed the pen to Willow. Your signature as well, since you're the most important party in this agreement. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on Willow as she signed her name. With a few strokes of a pen, her life's direction had changed irrevocably. We're heading to town now, Adam said, folding the signed document and returning it to the envelope. Would you like to join us, Mr. Wilson? Edgar shook his head. No, I've things to attend to here, but I'll be at the church on Saturday, clean and sober. You have my word on that. As they prepared to leave, Edgar awkwardly embraced his daughter. Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become, he whispered, despite my failings. Willow clung to him briefly, inhaling the familiar scent of tobacco and leather that reminded her of happier times, before grief and alcohol had claimed him. Try to stay sober, Father, not just for the wedding, but for yourself. I'll try, he promised, though they both recognized the difficulty of that commitment after years of dependence. As they rode away, Willow glanced back to see her father standing straight and tall on the porch, watching them go. It wasn't forgiveness exactly that she felt toward him, but a complicated mixture of hope, wariness, and the enduring love of a daughter who remembered the man he'd once been. Are you all right? Adam asked, noting her pensive expression. I think so, she replied honestly. I didn't expect him to be so reasonable. Sometimes people surprise us when given the chance. They rode in companionable silence for a while, the landscape gradually changing as they approached the town of Copper Springs. Unlike many frontier settlements that had sprung up haphazardly, Copper Springs had been deliberately planned around a central square, with the church, courthouse, and main businesses forming a neat grid. As they entered the town limits, Willow became acutely aware of the curious glances directed their way. Adam Morgan was well known and respected. His presence with a young woman dressed in quality clothing was bound to attract attention. People are staring, she murmured. Adam smiled reassuringly. Let them. Hold your head high, Willow. You have nothing to be ashamed of. They dismounted in front of the general store and Adam tied their horses to the hitching post. Mrs. Lawson runs the store, he explained. She's a bit of a gossip but fair-minded. If we can win her over, half the town will follow. The bell above the door jangled as they entered the well-stocked establishment. A plump woman in her 50s looked up from her ledger, her eyes widening when she saw Adam with Willow. Adam Morgan. What a pleasant surprise, she exclaimed, coming around the counter. And with a young lady, no less, will wonders never cease? Adam smiled warmly. Mrs. Lawson, may I present Miss Willow Wilson, my fiancée. Willow, this is Mrs. Eleanor Lawson, proprietor of the finest establishment in Copper Springs. Mrs. Lawson's expression cycled through surprise, curiosity, and calculation before settling on cordial interest. Fiancé, well, isn't that something, Wilson? Not Edgar Wilson's girl. Willow straightened her shoulders, channeling the confidence Adam had encouraged. Yes, madam, though soon to be Willow Morgan. Mrs. Lawson gave her an appraising look. Well, you're certainly a sight prettier than your circumstances would suggest. When's the happy day? Next Saturday, Adam replied, his hand finding the small of Willow's back in a subtle show of support. We're here to order supplies for the celebration and to choose fabric for Willow's wedding dress. The mention of business transformed Mrs. Lawson's demeanor entirely. A wedding. Why, you've come to the right place. I just received a shipment of the most beautiful white cotton from back east and some lovely lace trim that would be perfect for a bride. As Mrs. Lawson bustled about, pulling bolts of fabric from shelves and extolling their virtues, Willow found herself swept up in the unexpected excitement of planning her wedding. She'd never imagined having a proper bridal gown, had never dared dream of a church ceremony with flowers and guests. What do you think of this one? Adam asked, holding up a bolt of cream-colored satin. It's beautiful, Willow admitted, touching the fabric reverently, but surely too expensive. Mrs. Lawson tutted. Nothing's too expensive for a Morgan bride, dear. Adam's grandmother wore something similar when she married the first George Morgan back in '37. Adam nodded encouragingly. Choose whatever you like, Willow. This day should be everything you want it to be. The kindness in his eyes nearly undid her. I wouldn't know where to begin. I've never had a dress made specially for me. Mrs. Richardson does the finest seamstress work in the territory, Mrs. Lawson interjected. She could fashion something magnificent even on short notice for the right price. By the time they left the store an hour later, Willow had selected fabric, lace, and buttons for her wedding dress, and arrangements had been made for Mrs. Richardson to visit the Morgan Ranch the following day for measurements and design consultation. Additionally, Adam had ordered supplies for a reception to be held at the ranch after the ceremony, food, drink, and decorations befitting a celebration of significance. Their next stop was the church, a modest white building with a tall steeple at the end of the main street. Reverend Collins, a gentle-faced man in his 60s, greeted them warmly. Adam Morgan, and this must be your intended. Miss Wilson, is it? Yes, Reverend, Willow replied, surprised by his lack of judgment. I've known your father since before you were born, child, the Reverend said, as if reading her thoughts. He was a good man once and might be again with God's grace, but you are not defined by his choices. The simple acceptance in his words eased a tension Willow hadn't realized she was carrying. As they discussed the details of the ceremony hymns, scripture readings, and procedural matters, she began to feel that perhaps the town might accept her more readily than she'd feared. After leaving the church, Adam suggested lunch at the hotel dining room, the most respectable establishment in town. People need to see us together, he explained. To understand this is a proper courtship, not a scandal. The hotel dining room was busy with the midday meal crowd, and their entrance caused a noticeable lull in conversation before the buzz resumed, now obviously centered on them. Adam guided Willow to a table near the center of the room, a deliberate choice that placed them in full view of the curious diners. Remember, he murmured as he held her chair, you have every right to be here. Throughout the meal, various townspeople approached their table to offer congratulations or simply to satisfy their curiosity about Adam Morgan's unexpected engagement. Willow was surprised by the general civility of these interactions. There were a few raised eyebrows and whispered comments, but most people seemed genuinely pleased for Adam, if reservedly curious about her. You see, Adam said as they finished their meal. Not so terrible, Willow smiled, her confidence growing with each successful encounter. No, not terrible at all. Their final stop was the jeweler's shop, a small but well-appointed establishment run by a German immigrant named Herr Schmidt. Adam had sent word ahead, and the jeweler was waiting with a selection of wedding bands laid out on a velvet cloth. For the young couple, he said with a thick accent and a warm smile, I have prepared my finest work. The rings were beautiful, simple but elegant bands of gold that would symbolize their union. Adam encouraged Willow to choose the one she preferred, and she selected a slender band with a delicate pattern of leaves etched into the surface. An excellent choice, Herr Schmidt approved, a symbol of growth and new beginnings. As the jeweler wrapped their purchase, Adam leaned close to Willow. There's one more thing, he whispered, then addressed the jeweler. Herr Schmidt, do you still have the item we discussed? The jeweler's eyes twinkled as he reached beneath the counter and produced a small box. Indeed, Herr Morgan, as requested. Adam took the box and turned to Willow. I know this isn't the traditional order of things, given that we're already engaged, but I wanted you to have something special, something that's just for you, not part of an arrangement or negotiation. He opened the box to reveal a delicate gold pendant in the shape of a star, with a small diamond at its center that caught the light in brilliant flashes. Adam, Willow breathed, stunned by the unexpected gift. A star to guide you home, he said softly, no matter where life takes us. With trembling fingers, she touched the beautiful pendant. When did you arrange this? I sent word yesterday, he admitted. Herr Schmidt had this piece already made, which seemed like providence. He lifted the necklace from its box and moved behind her. With gentle hands, he fastened it around her neck, the cool metal settling against her skin like a promise. Thank you, she whispered, turning to face him. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever owned. His eyes held hers with an intensity that made her breath catch. You deserve beautiful things, Willow, and so much more. As they left the jeweler's shop, Willow was acutely aware of the weight of the pendant against her collarbone, a tangible reminder that this new life wasn't just about escape or practicality. It was about possibility, about a man who saw value in her beyond her circumstances. They mounted their horses for the ride home, both feeling the day had been a success beyond their expectations. Edgar had agreed to the arrangement with surprising grace. The townspeople had been generally accepting, and most importantly, the connection between them had deepened with each passing hour. 1 week, Adam said as they rode side by side, the afternoon sun warming their backs. 1 week until you become my wife. The word sent a thrill through Willow, part excitement, part nervousness. It hardly seems real. It's real, he assured her, reaching across to squeeze her hand. As real as this land beneath us, as real as the sky above. As they crested the hill that overlooked the Morgan Ranch, Willow paused to take in the view. The whitewashed buildings, the green pastures, the mountains rising in the distance, this would be her home. Not a place of survival, but a place of thriving. Ready? Adam asked, noting her contemplative expression. She nodded, a smile spreading across her face. Ready. The week before the wedding passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Mrs. Richardson, the seamstress, created a wedding dress that exceeded Willow's wildest dreams, a creation of cream satin and delicate lace that transformed her from a farmer's daughter to a vision of elegance. Hannah proved to be an invaluable guide, teaching Willow the intricacies of running a household of the Morgan stature, while treating her more like a daughter than a future daughter-in-law. Adam was busy with ranch business, but made time each evening to walk with Willow along the creek, their conversations ranging from practical matters of their future life together to deeper discussions of hopes and dreams long held private. With each passing day, what had begun as a convenient arrangement deepened into something true and meaningful. The night before the wedding, the Morgan household was abuzz with last-minute preparations. Guests would be arriving from neighboring ranches and from town, making this the social event of the season. Amid the chaos, Willow slipped away to the porch, needing a moment of quiet to absorb the magnitude of the change her life was undergoing. She was startled by the sound of a horse approaching in the darkness. Tensing, she reached for the small revolver Adam had insisted she carry, another remnant of their early days together, when he'd taught her to shoot to protect herself from predators. Who goes there? She called, her voice steadier than she felt. It's just me, girl, came her father's voice. No need for weapons. Edgar Wilson emerged from the shadows, leading his horse. He was clean-shaven and sober, dressed in clothes that, while worn, had been carefully mended and pressed. Father, Willow said, lowering the revolver. What are you doing here at this hour? Edgar approached the porch hesitantly. I wanted to see you before tomorrow's commotion, to give you something. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object that gleamed in the lamplight spilling from the house. Willow recognized it immediately, her mother's gold wedding band. I've been saving this, Edgar said, his voice rough with emotion. Your mother would have wanted you to have it. Not to wear, you'll have your own, but to keep, to remember her by. Willow accepted the ring with trembling hands. I thought you'd sold this years ago. Edgar shook his head. Some things are beyond price, Willow. I've forgotten that too often, but never completely. Impulsively, she embraced her father, inhaling the familiar scent that now lacked the sharp tang of whiskey. Thank you. Edgar patted her back awkwardly. You're going to make a beautiful bride, just like your mother was. They stood in silence for a moment, both remembering the woman who had been the heart of their family before illness had taken her too soon. I've been sober for 5 days, Edgar said finally. Longest stretch in years. That's wonderful, Willow replied, genuine happiness coloring her voice. Can't promise it'll last, he admitted. But I'm trying, for tomorrow, for you. The vulnerability in his admission touched her deeply. That's all anyone can ask, Father, that you try. They talked for a while longer, more openly than they had in years, before Edgar mounted his horse to return to the farm. I'll see you at the church tomorrow, he promised. Sober and on time. As she watched him ride away, Willow felt a weight lifting from her heart. Her father's demons weren't vanquished, but his effort represented a kind of redemption that she hadn't dared hope for. She returned to the house to find Adam waiting in the hallway. "Everything all right?" he asked, concern evident in his expression. "Yes," she replied, showing him her mother's ring. "My father brought this for me, a wedding gift of sorts." Understanding dawned on Adam's face. That was decent of him. "He's trying," Willow said simply. Adam drew her into an embrace, his solid presence a comfort and a promise. "Tomorrow," he murmured against her hair. "Tomorrow," she agreed, her heart full of a hope she would have thought impossible just weeks ago. The morning of the wedding arrived with perfect autumn, whether clear skies, gentle breezes, and golden sunlight that seemed an auspicious sign for the day ahead. The Morgan house was a flurry of activity as final preparations were made for the reception that would follow the ceremony. In the guest room that had become her temporary quarters, Willow sat before the mirror while Hannah arranged her hair, weaving fresh flowers into the intricate style. "You look radiant," Hannah said, meeting Willow's eyes in the reflection. "Truly a beautiful bride." Willow smiled, though her stomach fluttered with nerves. "I still can't quite believe this is happening." Hannah squeezed her shoulders reassuringly. "Marriage is a leap of faith, dear, even under the most conventional circumstances, but I've watched you and Adam together this past week. What began as rescue has grown into something genuine." "Do you really think so?" Willow asked, voicing the doubt that occasionally still plagued her. "I know my son," Hannah replied confidently. "He might have acted impulsively that day at your farm, but his heart recognized what his mind hadn't yet acknowledged. You're good for him, Willow. You balance his practicality with your spirit." A knock at the door interrupted their conversation. George Morgan entered, looking distinguished in his best suit, his expression softening when he saw Willow. "You're a vision," he said, uncharacteristically emotional. "Adam is a fortunate man." "Thank you, Mr. Morgan," Willow replied, touched by his approval. "George, please," he corrected. "We're family now." He glanced at his pocket watch. "The carriage is ready whenever you are. Most guests have already departed for the church." Hannah made a final adjustment to Willow's hair. "There, perfect." As they prepared to leave, another knock sounded. Adam's voice came through the door. "May I have a word with my bride before we depart?" Hannah opened the door but blocked his view. "It's bad luck to see the bride before the ceremony," Adam laughed. "I won't look. I just want to speak with her." Hannah relented, positioning herself so Adam could speak to Willow without seeing her. "Make it quick," she instructed her son. "We're on a schedule, Willow," Adam called. "I'm here," she replied, amused by the elaborate precautions. "I just wanted to say something before the church and the vows and all the formality," he said, his voice warm even through the barrier of the door. "I know how this began with a desperate act and a hasty decision. But what I feel for you now has nothing to do with rescue or obligation. I love you, Willow Wilson. I think I have for longer than I realized, and I count myself the luckiest man in the territory that you agreed to be my wife." The simple declaration brought tears to Willow's eyes. "I love you too, Adam," she replied, her voice steady despite her emotion. "Not because you saved me, but because of who you are, the man who sees me as I truly am and values what he sees." Hannah dabbed at her own eyes. "Now that's settled, we really must be going," she said briskly, though her voice betrayed her emotion. "Adam, your father is waiting for you by the stables. Go." The journey to town passed in a blur of anticipation. Willow rode in the family carriage with Hannah and George, her wedding dress carefully arranged to prevent wrinkles. As they approached Copper Springs, she could see that the church was already surrounded by horses and carriages, a testament to the Morgan family's standing in the community. Inside the church, she waited in a small anteroom while the guests were seated. Through the door, she could hear the murmur of conversation and the soft music of the organ. Hannah gave her a final embrace before joining her husband in the front pew. "Ready, girl." Her father's voice came from behind her. Willow turned to find Edgar Wilson looking more dignified than she had seen him in years. He'd managed not just to stay sober, but to present himself with a pride she'd thought long extinguished. "You clean up well, father," she said with a smile. "Special occasion," he replied gruffly. Not every day a man gives away his only daughter. As the organ music changed to signal the start of the ceremony, Edgar offered his arm. Shall we? With a deep breath, Willow placed her hand on her father's arm. Yes. The church doors opened, and all heads turned to watch the bride's entrance. Willow's first glimpse was of Adam standing at the altar, his expression transforming from nervous anticipation to awestruck wonder as he saw her. Beside him stood his cousin James as best man, and at the altar, Reverend Collins waited with an open Bible. The walk down the aisle seemed both eternal and instantaneous. Willow was acutely aware of the many eyes upon her, but her focus remained on Adam, his steady gaze drawing her forward like a beacon. When they reached the altar, Reverend Collins asked, "Who gives this woman to be married to this man?" Edgar straightened his shoulders. "I do," he said clearly, placing Willow's hand in Adam's before stepping back to take his place in the front pew. The ceremony itself was traditional and deeply moving. Willow and Adam exchanged vows in steady voices, promising to love, honor, and cherish one another for all their days. When Adam slipped the wedding band onto her finger, the one with the etched leaves she had chosen at the jeweler's, it felt like the completion of a circle that had begun that fateful day at the Wilson farm. "By the authority vested in me by God and the territory of Arizona, I now pronounce you husband and wife," Reverend Collins proclaimed. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder." He smiled at Adam. "You may kiss your bride." Adam's kiss was gentle, but filled with promise, a perfect balance of public propriety and private passion. When they turned to face the congregation as Mr. and Mrs. Adam Morgan, the church erupted in applause. The reception at the Morgan Ranch was a celebration unlike anything Copper Springs had seen in years. Tables laden with food and drink were set up in the yard, which had been transformed with lanterns and flowers. A small band played lively tunes, and guests danced and mingled in the golden afternoon light. Willow found herself the center of attention, receiving congratulations from people who had been strangers just days before. Mrs. Lawson from the general store declared the wedding the most romantic event since statehood, while the banker's wife insisted that Willow must join the Ladies' Aid Society as soon as she was settled. Edgar Wilson remained sober throughout the festivities, though he kept mostly to himself, except for one dance with his daughter that brought tears to the eyes of those who knew their complicated history. "You've made a good match," he told her as they moved awkwardly around the dance floor. "Better than I deserved to arrange for you. Perhaps it was meant to be, Father," she replied, in its own strange way. As the celebration continued into evening, Adam found his bride sitting for a moment of quiet at the edge of the festivities. "Happy, Mrs. Morgan?" he asked, taking the seat beside her. The new name sent a thrill through her. "Very happy, Mr. Morgan." He took her hand, his thumb brushing over the wedding band that now adorned her finger. "I've been thinking about that day at your farm, about what I said." "Which part?" she asked, curious about his pensive tone. "When I told Burroughs you belonged to me," he clarified. "It wasn't right, even if my intentions were good. You don't belong to anyone but yourself, Willow." She considered his words carefully. "Perhaps belonging isn't always about ownership," she suggested. "Perhaps it's also about choice, about finding where and with whom you truly fit." She squeezed his hand. "I choose to belong with you, Adam, not as a possession, but as a partner." His smile illuminated his entire face. "I like that distinction very much." As night fell, the celebration showed no signs of abating. Lanterns cast a warm glow over the proceedings, and the band played a slow, romantic melody that drew couples to the dance floor. "Dance with me," Adam asked, rising and extending his hand. In the circle of her husband's arms, moving beneath the star-filled Arizona sky, Willow marveled at the journey that had brought her here. From the desperate circumstances of her father's farm to this moment of perfect joy, the path had been unexpected and fraught with challenges. Yet every step had led her exactly where she was meant to be. "What are you thinking?" Adam murmured against her hair. "That sometimes the worst day of your life can lead to the best," she replied honestly. He pulled back slightly to look into her eyes. "And what would you say was the best day?" Willow smiled, her heart full of certainty. Today. But ask me again tomorrow and perhaps the day after. I suspect there are many best days ahead. Adam's answering kiss was a promise of exactly that, a future filled with days better than she had ever dared to imagine, built on a foundation of respect, understanding, and a love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings. As the evening drew to a close, the guests formed a corridor of well-wishers through which the newlyweds would pass on their way to the private cabin Adam had prepared at the far edge of the property, their home, until a more permanent residence could be built to Willow's specifications. Hannah embraced her new daughter-in-law with genuine affection. "Welcome to the family, truly and completely," she whispered. George shook his son's hand firmly before surprising Willow with a warm hug. "You'll do well together," he predicted. "You balance each other." The last farewell was from Edgar Wilson, who stood somewhat apart from the others. "I'll be heading back to the farm tomorrow," he told Willow. "Got some ideas about making it work again, maybe with a bit of that Morgan assistance mentioned in the agreement." "I'd like that," Willow said sincerely. "A fresh start for both of us." Edgar nodded awkwardly, then surprised her by adding, "I'm proud of you, girl. Your mother would be too." With those farewells complete, Adam led Willow to the waiting carriage that would take them the short distance to their temporary home. As they pulled away from the celebration, cheers and good wishes following them into the night, Willow leaned against her husband's shoulder. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For saying I belonged to you that day, even if it wasn't quite right." "For seeing something in me worth fighting for." Adam's arm tightened around her. "I should be thanking you for taking a chance on me, on us, when you had every reason to be wary." The carriage stopped before a small cabin nestled among pine trees, its windows glowing with welcoming light. Adam helped Willow down, then surprised her by sweeping her into his arms to carry her across the threshold. Inside, the cabin was simple but thoughtfully prepared. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting warm shadows across the polished wood floors. Fresh flowers stood in a vase on the table, and the bed was turned down invitingly. "It's perfect," Willow breathed, taking in the space that would be their first home together. Adam set her gently on her feet but kept his arms around her. "It's just temporary. In the spring, we'll build something more substantial, designed to your specifications." "I don't need grandeur," she assured him. "Just a place that's ours." His expression grew serious as he brushed a strand of hair from her face. "Are you nervous about tonight?" The question brought a blush to her cheeks, but she answered honestly. "A little, but not afraid. We have all the time in the world," he promised. "Nothing needs to happen that you're not ready for." His consideration touched her deeply. "I may be inexperienced, Adam, but I'm not fragile. I want to be your wife in every sense." The passion that flared in his eyes at her words sent a thrill through her body. "Then let me help you with that dress, Mrs. Morgan," he said, his voice dropping to a husky whisper. "It's beautiful, but I suspect it's complicated to remove." As his fingers worked the row of tiny buttons down her back, Willow felt a sense of rightness settle over her. This was where she belonged, not as a possession or a rescue, but as a woman freely choosing her path, her partner, her future. Later, as they lay tangled together beneath soft blankets, Adam's heartbeat steady beneath her ear, Willow reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. From a desperate father's attempted trade to the sacred vows they had exchanged, their story had unfolded in ways neither could have predicted. "What are you thinking?" Adam murmured, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "That life is strange and wonderful," she replied. "That sometimes the worst intentions can lead to the best outcomes," he chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her cheek. "Philosophy at this hour, Mrs. Morgan. Just gratitude," she corrected, lifting her head to look into his eyes. "For you, for us, for whatever comes next." "Whatever comes next," he echoed, drawing her close for a kiss that promised many more to follow. "We'll face it together." In the years that followed, Willow would often think back to that fateful day when her father had tried to trade her away and Adam Morgan had claimed her as his own. What had begun as a desperate act of salvation had blossomed into a love deeper and more true than either could have imagined. Their life together would not be without challenges, drought years that tested the ranch, the birth of children that brought both joy and sleepless nights. Edgar Wilson's ongoing struggle with sobriety that saw both progress and setbacks. But through it all, they remained each other's constant, bound not by ownership but by choice, not by circumstance but by love freely given and gratefully received. And sometimes, on quiet evenings when they sat together on the porch of the home they had built, watching their children play in the yard, Willow would touch the star pendant that still hung around her neck and remember the words that had changed her life. She already belongs to me. Not a statement of possession, she now understood, but a recognition of connection of two souls that had recognized each other amid the chaos and hardship of frontier life and chosen to build something beautiful together. Her father had tried to trade her away, but in doing so, had inadvertently set her on the path to the life she was meant to live not as anyone's property, but as Adam Morgan's beloved wife, partner, and equal in all things. It wasn't the life she had expected, but it was infinitely better than anything she could have imagined, a life built on respect, understanding, and a love that had grown from the most unlikely of beginnings into something strong enough to weather whatever the wild Arizona territory might bring their way.